No matter how low you are, no matter how awful life seems, find a way to make one step in any direction. The direction doesn't matter, because if you go off on a tangent, you'll learn something and you will naturally find your path. But get out of your comfort zone, because your comfort zone is going to kill you. And getting out of your comfort zone represents uncertainty, but that's where the magic lies. One cautionary lesson is be very careful of people around you. And people may have very different goals and aspirations. And one of the things I've learned is that I'm very creative. I can almost always find a path through something. But so be prepared for that. Don't hang on to one vision of the future too tightly, because it may not come to be. And so you need a passion greater than yourself. You need a passion greater than a new pair of boots or a house or a car or any material thing, actually. You have to find that passion within. I think bringing that energy into the equation is critical for everyone. I think the other thing that's really important is having a flexible mindset. And this goes to life and to business and to everything. And that certainly is a flow moment. Time stops. You have no idea how long you've been there, but you know it's a perfect confluence of everything you've worked for, everything around you, all coming together as one.
Welcome to Luxury Unplugged. If you're passionate about entrepreneurship, creativity, and maintaining a sane mind, you found your tribe. At Luxury Unplugged, we've dedicated to exploring the world of luxury living along with having a sane mind. I'm Neeti Keswani, author of best-selling book Live Your Dreams, and your host for Luxury Unplugged. And every week on Tuesdays, we've started bringing you incredible stories of very successful entrepreneurs and artists who are bringing their own twist to the success that how they are defining it. So get ready to dive deep into the minds of the CEOs and creative entrepreneurs who are shaping the world of business and spirituality. Today, our guest is Pat Wetzel. She's a storyteller, podcaster, and a writer. And she is on a mission to help people navigate life's bumps in the road. She tells stories about how people are navigating life's bumps. So, over to you, Pat. Welcome to Luxury Unplugged.
Thank you. It's really nice to be here.
Welcome. So Pat, before we dive deep into what you are doing currently, your passion projects, would like to understand your story because I have been reading your blog and a little bit about your profile as well. So got to understand that you've had a bit of pain in the midst of your trajectory. So how did you come out of it and what did you do really?
I've had more than a few bumps. I think between my story and the story of all the people who have been on my podcast, I
Mhm,
think there are many ingredients to navigating a bump in the road, but I
mhm,
think there's one critical ingredient, and that is simply movement. No matter how low you are, no matter how awful life seems, find a way to make one step in any direction. The direction doesn't matter, because if you go off on a tangent, you'll learn something and you will naturally find your path. So when everything has fallen apart, just remember to find a way, and it's hard, but find a way to get that energy to just move a little bit. It doesn't have to be a big deal. It might be going for a walk, it might be taking a class, but get out of your comfort zone, because your comfort zone is going to kill you.
mhm. You really feel that comfort zone are going to be like that if you are there in them for a very long time?
Yeah, I think when you're really low, your comfort zone is really, is pretty restricted, and you need to get out of it. You can't stay mired in what I call the muck, if you will. You
Mhm.
have to get out of it. And I think over time, to live an interesting life, I think you have to find comfort in uncertainty. And getting out of your comfort zone represents uncertainty. But that's where the magic lies. That's where there's infinite creativity. You're
Mhm.
not going to find creativity in your day to, you're not going to find the sort of life-changing creativity in your day-to-day life. You might, if you're very present, say you like to cook and you're very present when you're cooking, or you're with a child, you're very present. But generally speaking, for your own self-evolution, you need to learn to find comfort in uncertainty.
Mhm. Very rightly said. I completely resonate with that. Although my experience, I would just relate it a little bit over there. I have been through three locations to different countries, lived in US, UK, and India currently, and have stepped out of my comfort zone pretty much every
Oh,
three to
yeah.
4 years. So I
Well,
absolutely understand where you're coming from.
but all right, moving out of your comfort zone is not easy. But what happens when you immerse yourself in a totally different culture? That's really a big time shift.
It's a big time shift. It's a big cultural shift. Every time you move a country, and especially if you're moving between US and UK, they're absolutely different cultures. And then India, it's a total different ball game altogether. So,
Well,
yeah,
and in the US, it depends where you go. I mean, the US has so many subcultures.
yeah,
California is not New York. Florida is not Minnesota. So wherever you go in the US, you can find a very different cultural environment.
true, true. So, you have a very beautiful past as well as far as your experience is concerned, your work experience. You've been working with a lot of startups as well. Tell us something about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I've worked at a variety of startups, including some of my own, and there are a lot of life lessons to come from that.
Mm-hmm.
I think one cautionary lesson is be very careful of the people around you. People may have very different goals and aspirations. And one of the things I've learned is that I'm very creative. I can almost always find a path through something,
Mm-hmm.
but a lot of people aren't. And I had one situation where a business partner took my intellectual property, registered it with the US Patent Office as his own, and essentially said, go sue me. And a suit would have cost millions, well over $1 million, which was not in my game plan. In that case, I was dealing with somebody who couldn't create, but he could steal. But the fact that I could create is what saved me because I can find a way through it. So, as a cautionary tale to entrepreneurs, be very careful about the people around you, be very careful about your agreements. Understand that things change over time, they will not stay the same. Your relationships will not stay the same. So, be prepared for that. Don't hang on to one vision of the future too tightly because it may not come to be. But on the positive side, I think that there's so much. I think the key to having a success at anything is to be passionate about it
Mm-hmm.
because you have to wake up every morning, even when you don't feel like it, and go to work. And so you need a passion greater than yourself. You need a passion greater than a new pair of boots or a house or a car or any material thing, actually. You have to find that passion within. And that passion will sustain you. Even when you get a little bit burnt out, take a few days off, the passion will come back. If you don't have that inner passion and you're relying on an outer um, goal to motivate you, it's going to have a limited longevity.
True, true. And I think I and many of our fellow podcasters and the authors in the community, they will agree to the fact that intellectual property is our most, it's the most valuable possession that we have. So
Yeah.
if somebody is trying to do that kind of a thing, how did you really come out of it? I mean, did you take any
Yeah.
corrective
Well,
actions for that, or you just let him go?
I couldn't afford the legal bills in this country. My lawyers told me it would cost in increments of $500,000. It would take at least 3 years, and there was no guaranteed outcome. I had just come off of 6 years of cancer treatment. I was so sick from the stress, my hair was falling out, I was vomiting blood. So I went to see my oncologist who suggested, we better do some tests. It looks like the cancer is back. And I left that office and I looked at everything and I just had it at that point, 6 years of cancer treatment, if you can imagine. It was hell, frankly. I hope I can say that on this podcast. Um, and now my business partner has just destroyed everything. I had had it. I really just had had it. So I sold my house, put everything in storage, and went traveling. And that ultimately is what led to Bump in the Road, both the podcast and the book series.
Wow. Wow, what an interesting twist to the story that was looking like very painful from a particular angle. But the way that you've turned it into a book and a podcast, that's amazing. And I guess you have a newsletter as
Well,
well on that. So you
oh
send
yeah,
stories. Yeah.
we send a bi-weekly newsletter. We have the main podcast, Bump in the Road, and also under Bump in the Road, we have short podcasts called Side Trips. Because what happened, I'm going to my 4th year of podcasting now, and there are a few things that happened along the way. One is I have a remarkable perspective on the stories of all my guests. I call it the 30,000-foot perspective because I hear every story. So I get to hear all the commonalities and all the pieces that tie these remarkable stories together. And that really, the wisdom that comes from that is just astonishing. And that's what really drove me to write the book, Bump in the Road. The first one's a group of stories. The next book will be more category specific, like Bump in the Road Strong Women, Bump in the Road Cancer, Bump in the Road Sports, etc. But the podcast itself came out of a bump in the road. When I was working on a travel project in 2020 when COVID shut down travel, and I had to find a way to regroup. So I started the podcast, and I think this is where I'm meant to be. I just love my guests. They're amazing people. And I'm very grateful to be able to have meaningful conversations every week.
I think that is the basic ingredient that is required to have that kind of meaningful conversation to get that that factor which you're looking for, that connection, so that you're able to bring out the best of both the worlds, whatever we are talking about. I think that is the holy grail
And
for any podcast.
well, I love it. I learn a lot. I learn from all my guests,
Mhm.
which I think is really important. But the other thing that happens is I see things sometimes in their stories that they may not see going through the stories because I hear so many different tales of navigating life. And that's what really lends itself, I hope, to an interesting book. We hit Amazon bestseller status,
Oh,
so
wow.
that was good.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Um, but I I think that with that 30,000-foot view, my goal really is to bring wisdom, really life-sustaining wisdom to people. I think we all have it within us, but I think sometimes we see ourselves in other people's stories better than we see ourselves in our own story.
True, true. So tell us something about those wisdom nuggets that you might have, which might fit into our timeline as well, but something interesting, which are really burning in your heart, like, wow, this is something.
Oh gosh, I tell this story a lot, but it's so remarkable. I have to share it again. And this is not my story. It is Eric Weinmayer's story. He was a guest on my podcast. Eric is a world famous mountaineer. He went blind at 16. He climbed Everest blind, did the 7 summits blind, and he kayaked the rapids in the Colorado River, which are just wild rapids. It took him 8 years to prepare to kayak the Colorado River. He tells a story. This is his story. He divides the world into 3 groups. Now, these groups are fluid, and we've all been a part of each of these groups, and we all can be at any point. There's one group that he calls quitters, and that's kind of self-evident, okay? Then there are campers, and campers are people who like the status quo. They do not want to get out of their comfort zone. And it's not that they're lazy or anything. They may have just have been beaten down by life, okay? So campers are the vast majority of people. Then very few people are climbers. Now, climbers can be campers because you can't be a climber all the time. But the thing that I love the way he looks at the world. I've seen similar distinctions, say, in the cancer community, where originally with cancer, I thought that in a way, this could be an opportunity for people. 40 to 50% of us will have a cancer diagnosis, right? So you would think that something that profound might provide an opening into a more conscious and meaningful life. But I was wrong. I found that most people do not want to go through that opening. They want to go back to the status quo. And the problem is you can't go back. You've changed whether you admit it or not. So it's a disequilibrium, and it's a place that I don't think you can really thrive over time. But I love Eric's story because I am fascinated by what it takes to go from being a camper to a climber. What is it? And I'm going back to the beginning of this podcast now. I think one of the essential elements is that initial step of energy. And no matter how hard it is, I mean, I look at Eric's story. I mean, imagine you've been sighted and you go blind. You're angry, you're isolated, you're trying to navigate this strange world. He would go out hiking with his family and stumble and fall and run into things, but he kept going. And I think and that's his story over and over again. I mean, he's just a remarkable person. I think bringing that energy into the equation is critical for everyone. I think the other thing that's really important is having a flexible mindset. And this goes to life and to business and to everything. And one of the stories is about Effie Parks. Effie is a mom. And, she had dreams of the perfect pregnancy, the perfect child, he'll be an astronaut or whatever. But her child had a very rare genetic abnormality. And it was, I mean, being a mom can be isolating under any circumstances, but she was really isolated, particularly as her friends' children moved on developmentally and her son did not. And she went through some really hard times, some soul-searching times with this progression of events. And eventually she turned the corner and she saw everything through a lens of love. And when she started seeing everything through the lens of love and gratitude, her whole world shifted, everything changed. And I think that's a remarkable story, not only because that was a very soul-searching shift to make, but because it really demonstrates that how we view the world is our experience. And so developing the flexibility to see the world from a number of perspectives and ultimately being able to choose your perspective, I think is really important.
I think that's a very important point. First of all, understanding the different perspectives in the world and then choosing your own perspective. Tell me something, Pat. If somebody like the ones that you've mentioned right now, the blind person and this lady, if they have to go through so much, what do you think could be the driving factor for them to come out of the situation shining? And we still, because we in normal lives, we are not full of gratitude, we are not that appreciative in our day-to-day lives, whether we like it or not. We are not constantly appreciative of so much that divine has given us. But these people have to have that kind of level, that kind of frequency, to be able to come out of that situation.
Well, I think it goes back to the notion of energy. You're out of your comfort zone no matter what in those two stories, so you have to do something with it. But I want to comment on what you said about gratitude, because I think that's really important. That goes to your lens of how you view the world. Do you see the glass as half full or half empty or filling? You can always refill it. And I think gratitude really shifts the way you view the world. I know I have a gratitude practice daily. When I wake up in the morning, I brush my teeth and whatnot. I find 5 things to be grateful for. They have to be different every day. I can't repeat the same list. And then I meditate. And that is how I start every day. And it gives me peace, a solid foundation, a calm mind, and really looking at the world in terms of what I do have, not what I don't have. And I think that's really important.
True, true. So yes, that's what my point is, that if we are in our normal lives trying to be grateful, we could possibly still find so many things. With people who are challenged in such situations, for them, I think they are very, very inspirational to come out of it, to do that kind of mountain climbing, or raising a kid and coming out of it and talking about it and changing your life perhaps in some ways. So those kind of
But
personalities are absolutely heroic, I would say.
yeah, everybody in my book is heroic in their own way. Chris Dalberdine was skiing up at Taos, which is a wonderful mountain, but he was caught in an avalanche and he went head first over a cliff and all the snow just pounded down on him. He broke his back and he's lying there thinking, okay, I'm alive, but I'm not sure this is a good thing at the moment. But what he decided to do as he was healing, he realized that he wasn't living a life of passion. And part of his passion was to fly. Now, he had a problem because he got sick when he went up in the air. The bumpiness in the air just made him absolutely nauseous. But he found that early in the morning and late in the day, the air tends to be calmer. So he was living in New Mexico. He came over to Arizona and he got certified to fly a trike, which is essentially a motorized hang glider. And he started flying and he took his camera up with him. And now he takes the most amazing pictures from the air. They're magnificent. On Instagram, he's at shots from above, I believe. And check out his feed. It's beautiful. It's so inspiring. And here he is following a passion that's, artistic and visual out of a very serious bump in the road. He just realized his life was so precious. He had to use it according to his innermost drive. And I don't think anyone wants to break their back, but I think there's a real story there for all of us.
Mm-hmm.
Another commonality of all these stories is authenticity, and it did not happen immediately. All these people had to dig very deep to figure out who they were. Tom Cronin was a bond trader who actually had a nervous breakdown, learned to meditate, and totally changed the way he did business, went on to become a film producer and an author. And his goal is to get 1 billion people to meditate. So he went from the wild partying and drugs and everything else of the bond floor to a much different existence. And I think, and part of his path certainly was to find what gave him peace. And I think that same thing for a number of people in the book, actually. And I think searching for that individual authenticity is really important. And you don't find it overnight because society molds us. We're molded by our parents, by the society we live in, by our beliefs. And we have to I think we get to a point in life where we have to take a hard look at all this and ask, are they really my beliefs? Is it really who I am? Or am I dancing to the tune of somebody else? And when you start stripping away the tunes that you're dancing to and you find your own reality, that opens a really wonderful path, potential path for your own evolution.
True, very true. I think your book is sort of hinting very, very deep challenges that people have faced and the way they have come out of it. And you are focused on living the dreams in spite of those challenges and leading a beautiful, passionate life. And my book is very fictional. It's just one story, Live Your Dreams. But it's about this fictional girl. This is about a story of a fictional girl who is actually living the dream of her life, a beautiful career in the HR world, and a very high flying career, and how she tries to get onto her passionate um, work arena and not get onto something which the society, the behaviors around have been forcing her directly or indirectly, trying to come out of that rabbit hole and do something which she's truly passionate about. So the story of this girl is about this girl who's wanting to be an artist. you know she wants to be a fashion designer, but illustrator. But how she changes her ways from an HR corporate world into something which is absolutely close to her heart is what the story is about. When she's married, she's gone through loads of things. So basically we're trying, both of us are trying to convey the message of living the dream in spite of everything else, what your life
Yeah, and
presents. Mhm.
you can live the dream and still be part of this world. They're not mutually exclusive at all. But if you, in an ideal world, you can find your dream and your passion and live it. And I think the world is actually much more flexible and open to that now than it was 30 or 40 years ago.
True.
I mean, the ability to have all this social media and distribution right at your fingertips is absolutely amazing.
True, very true. I think that's a big thing for the authors, uh, to write something and to be able to see that. And you don't have to be in the world of traditional publishing to go that route. You could be, doing
No,
publishing, and you could be doing absolutely fine.
well, having just been through the publishing route, um, I think you have to be really thoughtful about how you decide to bring a book into the world,
Mhm,
because unless you're famous, the big publishers won't talk to you.
mhm.
Hybrid publishing has its pluses and minuses, as does self-publishing, because you're responsible for everything. But if you've built up a good social media presence, really you've done a lot of the work already.
True.
So, and if you're willing to go out and talk and do things like that, I think publishing has changed enormously, and you have to just see what works for your situation.
Very true. And coming to another part of an excerpt from your blog, it's about finding flow in the spirit, something like that you've written. Do you find that flow every day in your life? In
Every
your
day,
work?
no, but frequently, yes. When I was flying, I used to fly high performance sailplanes. You know, a sailplane is a really high tech glider, if you will, but
Mhm.
very well sealed, massive wings, 15, 17, 20 meters of wing, no engine. So you take a tow up, a thousand, 2,000 feet, about 2,000 feet, and you let go, and you have to go and find lift. You have to navigate an invisible aerial world of lift. And certainly part of the definition of flow is competency, so that you're very good at what you're doing and you're good enough that you can get lost in it. So it's not something that happens overnight. It takes effort and time. But certainly I found enormous experience in the flow flying. It's just so, I can't explain how magical it is to be up in the air, riding the energy of the sky, running down mountain spines at high speed. I mean, it's just incredible. And one day I was flying over Lake Tahoe, which is beautiful, beautiful alpine lake. And I turned, and at the end of my wing, I have a winglet, it's about, maybe 10, 12 inches. And so I turn and the winglet's parallel to the earth, right? And I feel it balance on a bubble of air. And I just ride it up through the sky, several thousand feet, Tahoe below, light streaming through the canopy. It was a moment of eternity, is the only way I can explain it. And that certainly is a flow moment. Time stops. You have no idea how long you've been there, but you know it's a perfect confluence of everything you've worked for, everything around you, all coming together as one.
Beautiful, beautiful. I can just imagine the experience that you must have gone through that time.
That and a lot that happened a lot flying. I think that was part of the utter addiction of the sport. But you can find flow anywhere in your life. Maybe it's you're so focused on the spin of a tennis ball, you just see it and you're timeless and you're there with it. Maybe it's watching a sunset. Maybe it's connecting with another person where time goes away.
Very true.
I think there are a lot of ways. It could be knitting. It could be cooking. I think there are a lot of ways to experience that kind of I'll call it, I don't know what to call it, but elevated existence, heightened awareness. It really goes to presence. Can you be intensely, completely present in a moment? And with presence, time slows down.
Very true. I think that is the meditative state, if I can say. That is when I have experienced that kind of stillness, absolute stillness,
Mhm.
and absolute peace. Yeah. So I guess there are some beautiful nuggets out there. So do you have any passion projects that you would like to talk about, or any sort of wisdom nuggets that you've given already so many in terms of the beautiful stories that you just shared? So any passion projects? What's your Everest?
Yeah, bump is my passion project.
Uh,
I talk to great people.
uh,
I'm working on the developmental aspects of the next book.
mhm,
In the first book, I tell some of my stories. I'm not looking to do that, I don't think, in the future books, although everybody tells me they like my stories, but I'm really looking to tell other people's stories. So I'm starting to work on the outline of the second book. And once I have that down, I have so much material. I mean, I could write 10 books. I just need to find the time to do it all.
yeah.
But Bump is my passion project. I'm very grateful that I have stumbled into it. It is nothing I planned. I never planned to write a book, but the podcast really just led me in that direction. There was so much wisdom I had to share. that it was meant to be a book.
Beautiful, beautiful. I think that's a very, very captivating episode right there. It is a beautiful conversation that we shared on so many things that have touched both of our lives when we are meeting people and we are sort of into stories that people are weaving around us. So, thank you so much, Pat, for your time today. It has been beautiful knowing you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you very much. I really appreciate being on your podcast. And this was a great conversation. Thank you for having me.
you're most welcome. Thank you so much, Pat. All right.